I asked you all what your favorite drugstore liquid eyeliners are, and in this video, I'm testing and ranking the top 4 answers. I was really excited to see 2 of my personal favorites land among the top results, but it'll be interesting to see how they stack up with the others. If you don't know me already, hi, my name is Miranda. I've been creating budget beauty videos since 2012. I'm so glad you found me. Let's get into it. All right, let's kick things off with the top 2 answers when I asked y'all what are your favorite drugstore liquid eyeliners. We have the NYX Epic Ink Liner versus the Maybelline Tattoo Studio liquid liner. Let's start with NYX. Now this was my go-to liquid liner for years. This is the one that I bought backups of so I would never run out. This is about $10 and they claim it can last up to 24 hours resisting water, smudging, and flaking. Now I have pretty oily eyelids. Today I've put on eyeshadow primer, a little bit of powder, and then I put bronzer in my crease. And this just helps control the oil from my lids kind of coming through strong. So this is a brush tip. It is very pointy, it's very precise. And one thing that I always liked about this liner is that the product flow is very consistent and it's a good amount. So I never feel like it's drying up in the middle of my application. That also means that I can use the very tip of the pen because product is flowing all the way through it. I mean, hello, look at how precise that is. I love how tapered and pointy I can get my liner with this. Now, I do feel like maybe I have a little bit of a bias towards this because I'm so used to how it handles. So I'll keep that in mind when I'm, testing all the other ones. Now, this will be my first time using the Maybelline Tattoo Studio liquid liner, but I am generally a fan of their Tattoo Studio products. I feel like that's Maybelline's version of L'Oreal's Infallible line. Like, they're known to be long-lasting, super pigmented, and just like pro quality. So this liner is about $10.99. They claim that it's waterproof, smudge, flake, and fade resistant up to 24 hours. Y'all, who is wearing their liner for 24 hours? I need a solid 12, maybe 16 hours at most. But let's check out the brush on this. Oh yeah, it looks pretty similar. Wait, hold on. Wait, these have the same packaging. Look at the components, especially around the top here, exactly the same size. These are the same components. Now, some of you may be aware of this, but in case you're not, Maybelline and NYX are both owned by L'Oreal. And L'Oreal is kind of notorious for sharing similar formulas and packaging components among all their brands, even like the high-end ones. I find that they dupe themselves a lot, like as an umbrella beauty conglomerate. Now, looking really closely, I do see that the Maybelline brush is slightly skinnier. It kind of tapers to be more pointed than the NYX one, but everything else looks very much the same. I'm curious to see if the formula is similar as well. Look at that top line that I just created. That's so skinny. Now, this pen does not nearly have as consistent of a product flow. I feel like I keep needing to kind of refreshen the flow by drawing with a little more pressure on my hand. Trying to keep the pressure light seems to not get as much product out. Whereas with the NYX one, I feel like I can go in with a very light hand and I still get a solid line. Oh, we definitely ended up with 2 different liner looks though. Oops. Also, these are both new pens. I just opened them, so they shouldn't be like dried out. I wanted to be comparing fresh pens to each other. I mean, there's always a chance that one of them was sitting on the shelf a little longer, but giving the Maybelline one a good shake does help with the product flow for sure. I just feel like I kind of have to keep doing it throughout the application. See, like I want more ink in the tip. Yeah, I feel like I'm not actually getting the precision that I want from this because I have to press a little harder to get the ink out, and that's obviously creating thicker lines than I want. Using the L'Oreal Paradise Big Deal Mascara. So here's what we're starting with today. I definitely think that the NYX side looks smoother, although I do like the slightly more matte finish of the Maybelline liner. Alrighty, it is just past 8 in the morning. I'll check back in with you to see how these are holding up a little later. I'm back and it has been over 9 hours. And let me tell you, it's getting hot in Vegas. It was sunny, I was running errands, a little bit of sweating going on. But both liners are looking pretty good despite the oil kind of breaking through my primer and powder that I put on my lid. This is the first time I'm really looking up close at my liner since this morning. Let's start with the NYX side. I mean, that still looks very sharp and smooth. You tell me, does this look any different than it did this morning? It's also still solidly opaque. I'm really not seeing any fading, no crackling, no crumbling or smearing at all, and no transfer. I mean, you can see, ew, how oily my lids look today. The primer and powder did not do much, maybe because I was sweating, but a lot of times with eyeliner, once it starts mixing in with my natural oils, it kind of like stamps when I open my eye onto the top of my lid, and that is not happening here. It still looks super clean. All right, let's check in with the Maybelline side. At first glance, it still looks pretty dark. You know, it does look a little bit crackly once it meets my eye's outer corner. It's just showing more wear for sure, right here. Can you see that? But certainly not the worst liquid eyeliner I've tried. I mean, it still looks very dark. I wouldn't say any fading has happened. I mean, the tip of that wing is still very sharp, but comparatively, I think the NYX just looks more solid. Now, I think I want to do a smudge test using the oil on my lid, because realistically, you might be going about your day, you kind of rub at your eye and you do grab some of that oil from your lid and kind of swipe it through. So let's see how that affects the NYX liner. I'm just gonna do a swipe. Okay, not too bad. That definitely faded the tail just a tad, but no big smear. And honestly, not that much crumbling or anything. All right, what about the Maybelline one? Let's really get in there. Ooh, okay. That one was definitely affected by the oil and friction. And I will be doing a friction-only smudge test at the end, so definitely stay tuned for that. But this is definitely more of an IRL situation. If you're rubbing at your eye, those oils are gonna be present. Very, very interesting. Okay, we have 2 more liquid liners that y'all told me were your favorites, but before we get into them, I would really appreciate it if you considered subscribing to my channel for more budget-friendly makeup comparisons like this one. But if you're already part of the squad, please give this video a thumbs up if you're enjoying it. That helps YouTube show it to more people. Today it's a battle of the skinny drugstore liquid eyeliners. I'll be testing the Physicians Formula Eye Booster Super Slim Liquid Eyeliner against the Wet n Wild Breakup Proof Skinny Liquid Eyeliner. Let's start with the Physicians liner. I was really excited that this made it to the top of y'all's favorite list because this has been a go-to of mine for a little over a year now. And the reason I've been gravitating toward this more is because my makeup preferences have changed, and honestly, I'm not doing liquid liner as often as I used to. It used to be like a non-negotiable in every single makeup look, but when I do decide to wear liquid eyeliner now, I'm usually opting for a thinner and smaller winged look, and this is the perfect liner for that because of the super precise brush tip. This has a super defined tip that helps me create sharp points. They say that it measures 2.5 millimeters. Not only is this waterproof, but the formula actually acts as a lash serum with peptides. I just love how I can get it right up against my lashes. Look how skinny that line is. You can see how precise I can get that tip. Now it can be a little bit of a learning curve if you haven't used this thin of a brush before, especially if you're someone who kind of goes over the same line twice, because with a thinner brush, you're less likely to hit the exact same spot twice, like right over what you already drew. But all in all, I just feel like I have a little more control because with thicker brushes, I often feel like I end up with thicker liner than I intended because I just like pressed at the wrong angle. But this is exactly the liner look I was going for. I kept it incredibly slim. And look how smooth and inky that looks. Beautiful. Now this is the first time I'll be using the skinny version of the Wet n Wild Breakup Proof Liquid Eyeliner. They have 3 versions of this liquid eyeliner, all with the same formula. They just have different applicators. So there's the original brush tip, the skinny one, which is what I have today, and then they have a new winged out version with a thin slanted tip for winged liner looks. But I've been dying to try the skinny version because of how much I love the thin brush on the Physicians Formula liner, and this one has an even smaller point. They say this measures less than 0.1 millimeters. I don't know how it's possible. And this is only about $5.50. This formula is also waterproof, and these are both cruelty-free and vegan. Here's the difference between the Physicians Liner and Wet n Wild liner tips. I mean, they look so similar, but I do see that the Wet n Wild one comes to maybe the slightest pointier of a point. Oh, wow. Okay, yeah, that does draw a thinner line. I mean, you can tell right off the bat, that line is like in my lashes. The Physicians one is definitely still up against my lash line, really, really close, but holy cow. Very, very thin line. Wow. Now, the thing with these skinny liners is that if you're filling in your wing, it might take a little bit longer than just like the swoop that you do with a thicker brush, because you really do need to sort of fill them in with smaller strokes. I think this side ended up a bit thicker, but it is what it is. Here's the thing, because this tip is that much skinnier, I feel like you can kind of see where my hand gets shaky more. I would say that if you don't have a super steady hand or you are a beginner at winged liner, a thicker brush will be more forgiving. And I'm used to using the Physicians one, but this one's just that much skinnier that I could see some shakiness in my line, which obviously means I have to thicken it up to even it out, and then it defeats the purpose. Let me put on a light coat of mascara. Here is our starting point with these skinny liners. Now, I did notice during application that the Wet n Wild pen may be slightly drier or have a little less product flow than the Physicians liner. Other than that, both liners created a very clean, sharp wing. Let's see how they do throughout the day. I'll check back in with you in a bit. All right, I'm back. I think we're coming up on about 10 hours of wear, and I'm just gonna zoom you in because I do see a difference performance-wise. Here's the Physicians Formula Liner almost 10 hours after applying, and honestly, I still think it looks just as fresh as this morning. It is still looking very smooth, very pigmented, and I'm not seeing any flaking or cracking at all. Now, with the Wet n Wild liner, I am seeing a little bit of cracking throughout the tail of my wing. I'm hoping the camera can pick it up. It's not super obvious when my eye is open, but when I close my eye, I feel like you can kind of see cracking as the skin pulls it taut. I'll slightly pull so we might be able to exaggerate the effect. See how there's just a little bit of cracking? And on the Physicians Formula side, even if I pull a little bit, the formula is not cracking at all or separating. Now, this is very minuscule. I am really up in my own grill trying to, nitpick and find the difference. But let's see how they do if I swipe at my eye, kind of taking some of the oils from my lid. Okay, here's the Physicians Formula one. Ooh, okay. It didn't really smear, but I'm getting a little bit of crumbling under the wing. Not too bad. And Wet n Wild. Ooh, yeah. Some of that wing is definitely missing now. I crumbled off way more product on this side. All right, before I share my final rankings, I want to do a dry and wet smudge test. Here are the swatches we're starting with. Now, I also want to point out the difference in finishes. The Maybelline liner has a flat matte finish, which is my favorite look among the bunch, especially because I have texture around my eyelids and particularly where I would place my liquid eyeliner. I think a matte finish is just the most flattering. And then something else I didn't notice until I swatched all of these side by side, the NYX liner is not as deep of a black as the others. Okay, when smudged dry, all of these hold up. Zero smearing, no crumbling or flaking, and I'm not even really seeing much fading either. So if you do not have oily lids, then I think any of these would be a good long-lasting choice for you. However, if you're specifically looking for them to deliver on the waterproof claim, check this out. I ran these under warm water because I felt like this mimicked tears the best. Now, none of the liners started running or smearing from just coming into contact with water. So that was nice to see. However, if you're crying or if your eyes are just watering, it's more than likely that you'll be kind of wiping at your eye a bit. And when wiping at these while wet, there was definitely a level of wear with every single liner. But the Physicians Formula liner clearly comes out on top with the most product hanging in there. It was absolutely no contest. So with all of this in mind, plus my personal preferences, of course, here's how I would rank your favorite drugstore liquid eyeliners. Now, this was tough because honestly, these liners are great. But in last place, don't hate me, it's the Wet n Wild Breakup Proof Skinny Liquid Eyeliner. Now again, I want to point out, this is by no means a bad liner, but we tested the cream of the crop and this came in fourth. There's actually a lot about this liner that I like. This is probably the thinnest brush tip eyeliner that I've ever tried. I actually hope that I get a better handle on this liner because I love a good skinny wing. But I'm not a big fan of how shiny the finish is, and it did break down when met with the oil from my lids. Plus, it performed poorest in that warm water test. Coming in third, I gotta give it to Maybelline. The finish definitely did some heavy lifting when ranking these. The flat matte black finish is my preferred look. I think it's very chic, and the matte finish just makes the black look even deeper. It can create really precise lines, though I did feel like the product flow was lacking a bit, especially when I wanted to go in and use the very thin tip. I just didn't feel like there was enough product getting all the way to the tip of the brush. This one did okay on my oily lids, nothing too bad, just a little bit of crumbling when swiped at. In second, it's my old faithful, the NYX Epic Ink Liner. Even though this black shade isn't as deep as the others, this definitely glides on the easiest, giving you the control you need to create very clean lines. And with my oily lids, very minimal fading, but I didn't see any smearing or crumbling. Which leaves number one, the Physicians Formula Eye Booster Super Slim Liquid Eyeliner. This is definitely my Goldilocks liquid eyeliner. The brush tip is thin, but not too thin that the lines get all shaky. The product flow is consistent and it holds up on my oily lids. In fact, this is the liner that I traveled with to the South last year at the late end of spring. It was humid as heck and this lasted all day. Plus, it completely dominated the waterproof test. And something else that I wanted to point out, despite this also having the lash serum aspect, it's priced pretty reasonably. I mean, it's $10 just like two of the other liners we tried. Recently, I've been seeing so many like makeup skincare hybrid products, but they're priced at a premium because of the skincare benefits or whatever those, secondary benefits are. And this is still very reasonable. Frankly, I think this is one of the brand's best products, like even higher than their butter bronzer. But now I'd love to hear from you. Have you tried any of these drugstore liquid liners? Or if you have a favorite that I did not test in this video, let me know what it is in the comments below. Thank you so much for making it to the end of the video. If you want to spend more time together, check out this video next where I test your favorite drugstore under eye concealers. I'll see you over there. Bye!